Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining Sustainable Japan Project YouTube channel. Starting today, we're launching this channel to connect people from all fields and sectors around the globe in order to achieve our mission of creating more sustainable society through cross-border business in all areas for our planet 100 years from now. My name is Wakako from ASTERI Corporation, and I'll be the MC for today's interview session. We also have Tony from Global Media Corporation, and together with ASTERI, we're the founders of Sustainable Japan Project. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us, everyone. And we are most pleased to have Mr. Mark Ritchie as a guest speaker. Thank you for joining, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me and honoring me with this opportunity, but also thank you for every day your writing inspires me and us here in the US, because we're always wanting to learn from the rest of the planet, and you do such a good job of bringing the message of sustainability from Japan to the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tony. So let's get started, and by first introducing yourself, Mark, and your background and what has led to your recent activities.
Yes, I grew up in a family where my father was a scientist devoted to addressing issues of hunger, because in the Second World War, he saw people dying from famine. And he came back and went to college to become a scientist. He was an electron microscopist using Toshiba electron microscopes. And so we had a lot of information in our home and a lot of appreciation for Japan, and always a book about Kyoto on our coffee table. And my mother was a teacher in elementary school and then a principal. And I trained in science and I trained in education. But I eventually became active in looking at the questions of the policies that can bring us to a more prosperous, more sustainable, more resilient world, focusing my attention on especially the impacts of trade and trade policy on family farmers and on the environment. And over the years, I've had the opportunity and the privilege of working in my state government's Department of Agriculture, working in the federal Department of Agriculture, and also on influencing our national policies on trade, on environment. But a few years ago, I chose to run for office, the office of Secretary of State in my state of Minnesota. It has two responsibilities. One is running the elections. The second is being the main place where businesses of all sizes and shapes register, get documents, all of the official relationships between the companies and the state. And in the decade that I served in that position, I became much more aware of the full implications of all the changes underway in our society as it affects business, and also about the innovative ways that businesses were addressing some of the challenges around climate, around depletion of natural resources. At 12 years old, it had a big impression on me, but it has the effect of saying, you know, if the world comes together and we talk about our vision of the future, we inspire especially young people, but we also find new ways of connecting, of cooperating. And I can remember, for example, the Japanese pavilion at the 64 World's Fair. And when I, as an adult, moved to San Francisco, there it was, because it had been relocated. So I was part of a small group of people that began talking about, wouldn't it be great to have another World's Fair here in the United States, here in our home state? We should focus it on health and wellness. Minnesota is internationally known, the Mayo Clinic and Medtronic and many things around transplants and heart work. So over time, I have taken on that work. And at this moment, I'm serving as the president of Global Minnesota. It's our World Affairs Council 70 years old. Its mission is connecting Minnesota to the world and the world to Minnesota by advancing international understanding and engagement. And so those elements have given me the opportunity to both keep learning from my friends and colleagues from overseas, and also for the opportunity to share things that we're doing here in Minnesota, in the Midwestern part of North America, in the United States. And so one thing I treasure is the early morning hours when I get to electronically read news from the whole planet, for example, from Japan. And then I get to share that with my friends and colleagues. And so I find it as a really important part of my daily life is to have some element of learning from others around the planet, and then being able to share what I'm learning with friends and family and colleagues here and all over the world.
Wow, that sounds very exciting. And thanks to the technology, we're able to have this YouTube channel. And, you know, we are on the opposite side of this planet, but we're all connected.
Correct. And the thing is that we've had these tools. For example, 1964, when I went to the New York World's Fair, very young, but they had video phones. They had driverless cars. Of course, it's 50 some years later, and we're only now really using the video, and that's partly because the pandemic has really accelerated. But because we have these tools, I feel like I'm in a conversation with you right across the street. And the things that we cherish in terms of hugging our children and shaking hands and holding each other, these are things that are important and they're part of life, but also being able to communicate directly with the electronic and the digital tools changes fundamentally what we are able to do. And I'm hopeful that it, like expos, like the Olympics, can these tools help bring us closer? Can they help us create a more peaceful and prosperous world for everybody? I think so. And we are finding new ways. And it's also interesting for me becoming in increasingly close contact with the planners of the Osaka Expo, the level of technological development that they will be applying to have both a safe expo. We now are very pandemic aware, especially Japan with the Olympic, but more than just safe, that it will be a combination of the amazing things that you could see there on that, I suppose, 1,000 acres or on that site, but then broadcast so that the billions who won't be able to come, or that the climate couldn't handle everybody coming, but the billions that are also going to be able to learn and be inspired and to become more hopeful thanks to the way that the planners for the Osaka Expo will incorporate the digital in addition to that very special in-person experience that we know will be amazing.
Thank you so much, Mark. And just as you mentioned, Paralympics just happened last year here in Tokyo, right? And that was one of the amazing ways to connect people from all over the world in the area of sports. And now we're having Osaka Expo in 3 years from now, where all the businesses and, you know, all people from all fields and sectors really gather together to exchange ideas and come up with tangible ways to create new types of business where positive and constructive circulation of economy will be born. That's what we are hoping for.
Yes, and it's the theme, and it's also has been really the new mantra almost all of the expos, especially using the UN Sustainable Development Goals. For example, the Minnesota Expo, which is a smaller 3-month instead of 6-month, it's only 25 hectares, but it is focused on SDG 3, good health and well-being for all at all ages. The Osaka City Pavilion will be focused also on health and wellness. Dubai has turned its attention to addressing the pandemic. So we can see that when the whole planet creates something like the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, all 17, that the elements of the expos and some of the other international movements can use those as like a North Star. They can use those as a guide. And it's exciting to see how Osaka is incorporating this into their planning, but also it's exciting to see the countries that are competing for the 2030 Expo, all of them focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals, because that's the target year, the 15-year target year, 2030. By 2025, when we all come to Osaka to celebrate and to see, we will be in the conversation about what comes after 2030. And it's exciting for me that that conversation will be taking place in Japan, where there's a lot of advanced thinking about sustainability, but also really Japan is leading the way in so many fields. Japan is, let's say, a little bit ahead of the curve. We use that expression sometimes, meaning you are thinking about the incredible positive benefit of people living longer, that you've able to help people through nutrition and exercise and medicine to live long lives, to have their many years to enjoy their children and grandchildren and their whole life. But you've had to make a combination to make things in society more agreeable, more successful, more sustainable for that changing demographic. The United States is moving in the same path. Japan is establishing new ways of thinking about everything from car safety to how we deliver education and recreation and fitness exercise. And so I believe that 2025, the world will be thinking beyond 2030, and we'll have the benefit of Osaka's leadership and bringing that global thinking together in one place, and then sharing it through the digital media with the whole planet.
Yes, that sounds really exciting. Thank you, Mark. And now could you please share with us your short, mid to long-term vision?
Yes, I think the pandemic given me the understanding that my very laser-like focus on sustainability, how can we make sure that we're not depleting the future for all who will come behind us, that adding that concept of resilience, of making it able to handle the shocks, the unexpected. This is Her Excellency Ring Al-Hashimi, who's the director of the Expo in Dubai and the national director for the Sustainable Development Goals. And she said, you know, we were talking about legacy of expos. A very dear friend of mine worked at the Osaka Expo in 1970, and she always talks about the legacy. But she said that the legacy of the Expo in Dubai, and she wasn't talking about something like the Eiffel Tower, she said it will be a globally inclusive health system that's crisis-proof and fit for the future. So an inclusive global health system, everybody is included in health and in fitness and in medicine. That's crisis-proof. Crises will happen. How well prepared are we? How do we respond? Have we done everything we can? how can we be crisis proof and then fit for the future? How are we creating a more prosperous, a more sustainable, a more equitable and fair future? So that same vision, an inclusive world where everyone has access to healthcare, to fresh water, to the food, and to education. But we are crisis proof. We know nature, society, things happen that we need to be prepared for and do everything we can to prevent. And then finally, we need to be future oriented. We know that we have problems and challenges, but we also have the intellectual capacity and our two hands to create that future that is really for all of us. So I share her vision that my work trying to bring an expo to Minnesota and trying to support the expo in Osaka and Dubai and Milan can contribute to more inclusive, equitable world, ready for those crises that are bound to come, but also focused on making the future better for those who come after we're gone.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. I cannot agree more with everything you said. Yes, and for those who live now on this planet, I always consider this planet as a spaceship Earth, right? And we're gathered here together to make better of everything for those who are behind us, just like you said. And it's really important to know not to focus too much on now. It is important to focus on now and what we can do now, but not only that, we always have to think of the future, as you rightly described.
Yes, yes. And I think this will be the big contribution of what we might call the sustainability movement, is getting us oriented to the future, not just in a narrow, will my bank account be bigger when I die, but will the planet be welcoming and nourishing and supportive and healing to all who come. And so that way that the sustainability movement has kind of asked us and begged us and enabled us to look ahead, having resilience being reinforced by the pandemic, just as a reminder that we are interconnected with the future, yes, with each other right now, and with the past, because we've inherited so many gifts, but we've inherited those gifts with the expectation that we'll take care of them, the planet, the roads, our buildings, but that we will invest for the future in the way that those who came before us invested for us. And so if we can keep ourselves learning from the sustainability movement about some of the practical matters, we got a big challenge with climate, with carbon. It's easy to say, let's go carbon neutral. And it's exciting, inspiring to have so many of the businesses really not just saying it, but making plans. But we have to work this day in and day out, just like a farmer has to keep nourishing the soil. You can raise rice and feed people and give them the culture and the heritage and the nourishment they need, but you have to feed the soil and protect the water to be able to bring that nourishment up from the earth. And so we now have many decades of thinking about sustainability as a mechanism for helping us be future oriented. And now we're learning about some of the ways that we can do that, with less resources, with less carbon release, with less things like single-use plastic. So I feel like we're headed in a good direction with guidance from things like the sustainability movement. And we're going to continue to be thinking along those lines going forward.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. Do you have any questions, comments, Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I was really excited to hear from you about your idea, your inner emotions, thought about the coming expo in 2025. And, the theme of Osaka Expo in 2025 is, as you may know, designing future society for our lives. And our concept is, people's living lab, a laboratory for a future society. And I think as, stepping stone, starting from Osaka, 2025, of course, we are already started. And, you take the leadership, we get together, take the leadership to from Osaka as a stepping stone to your exhibition in Minnesota in 2027. And then the final year to 2030. I think we want to look at, the differences or the changes in 2030 together with Mark, we will enjoy the happenings and changes together.
I loved it. Well, and 2025 Osaka should be where we kick off the discussion about what should come next after 2030, because that needs to be a global conversation. And then in 2027, we can sort of check in and say, okay, we have a lot of work to do to get to 2030 to get those goals, but where will we take this? And that's what I love about the theme for 2025 is it's designing for the future. This is really, I think the opportunity that we've been given as a kind of gift from the pandemic is a kind of requirement that we design the future conscious of all the challenges from climate and COVID and everything else. And we are, as a world, fortunate that Osaka was chosen because Osaka and Japan has the capacity and their own experience to bring the emotional and intellectual resources needed to make it a real launching pad. And the truth is, we will have, for the first time in Osaka, we use the word hybrid right now, but a big in-person event, but a really big digital event. And Japan's leadership in digital, in animation, in storytelling through the virtual and through what we now call the metaverse, and all of that is really going to be on global display, the advanced nature of that. But more importantly, the whole planet will be the beneficiary of the messages brought by all the countries to Osaka, then being transmitted and shared globally, coming out of Osaka to the rest of the world. And I'm really excited about that because that can then guide us in Minnesota as we build upon and learn what Osaka has accomplished in 2025. It'll be our responsibility to keep the ball rolling towards 2030. And it's a big challenge, but we're up to it here in Minnesota, and we've spent almost a decade preparing, just like Osaka has been preparing for a long time. So it's exciting for me to know that the world has these bright spots, these bright opportunities for hope, for visioning the future coming up. Dubai has done an incredible job, and I'm looking forward to going very soon. Osaka has the next opportunity, hopefully Minnesota, and then we don't know, but we know that 2030, the whole world's attention will be on the expo, and where we go from here, where we go after the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think Osaka is the place to kick off that conversation.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
Yes, so we very much look forward to seeing you here in person in Osaka in 2025.
Me too. I
And
hope
me-
to be there before. So,
yes, of course.
Yes.
And meanwhile, we will keep in touch and keep working together to search for the ways to, create more sustainable society and the world together in all areas, as I said earlier. And please keep in touch and let us know and update us on your progress.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this opportunity. There's a Japan-Minnesota Association. People who've come to Minnesota, gone to school or worked for companies, but I had the privilege of speaking at their Christmas party last December.
Oh, wow.
It was virtual, it was digital, it was, I think, in Tokyo. But what was exciting for me was that it gave me a chance to recall the visits that I've made to Japan. My work was primarily with the farmers, rice farmers, but it was a time where I was very, very interested in why Japan had been so important to my father, who was a technologist, a scientist. He was working with Toshiba and other companies. But I had the privilege of connecting with the land and with the people working the land. And so for me, I can't wait to get back. I know we have a lot of work to do as partners, Osaka and Minnesota, but the whole world. And I'm very fortunate that more or less every morning I get to open my Japan Times. I get to find your link and get some inspiration from what you are seeing and reporting for me to know how sustainability is moving ahead in Japan and how we can share that with the world. So you will be hearing from me, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
Great. Thank you so very much, Mark. And thank you again, everyone, for watching Sustainable Japan Project YouTube channel. And we will see you next time at our next interview scheduled in February. Thank you again, everyone. See you next time.
See you.
Bye, and thank you.
Thank you.